Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Audrey from Audrey Approved. I'm gonna do the mid-year book freakout tag today, which I always tend to like binge watch whenever it comes around every year. I think I really like this tag because it's basically like a superlatives tag, right? Where you go through like, you know, favorite, most disappointing, stuff like that. And I think that's just a format I really like to talk about books in because at the end of every year when I do like a yearly wrap up, I always tend to do superlatives that, you know, I just make up. But I have a list of questions here. There are a few different versions, I think, floating around, and then, you know, I added one or two questions for things that I wanted to fit a book in there that I wanted to talk about. So it's a bit of an adapted tag, but yeah, I hope if you've never seen anything from me, it gives you a good taste of the kind of books that I like to read, and yeah, give you an update for what I've been enjoying this year. Okay, so the first question is best book that you've read this year, which I kind of feel like should be the question that comes at the end, you know, to keep you all in suspense. But I did choose two books for this. The first one is All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Remarque, which I read as the Germany pick for this, you know, read around the world challenge that I'm doing. It's a German classic. It's about the brutalities and the realities of war. And it was just very, very powerful and very emotional. And so I was pretty blown away by All Quiet on the Western Front. The other book that I think really took me by surprise, I thought I would like it, but I didn't think I would like it this much. It's actually Say Nothing by Radden Keefe, which is a booktube darling. It's so well loved because it's told so well, but it's a piece of narrative nonfiction that covers some of the politics and the repercussions of IRA actions in Northern Ireland in, you know, I think it's the late 80s and the 90s all the way through kind of more of a modern time. And I just, you know, again, it's wonderful storytelling. It's meticulously researched, and I found it incredibly gripping. Next up is The Biggest Disappointment, and for this I have to choose Pathogenesis, A History of the World in 8 Plagues by Jonathan Kennedy, which I had pretty high expectations for. I feel like I assumed that it would walk through like all the big major plagues of history, right? Like the Black Death or the cholera epidemic or what is it, the 1918 flu epidemic. But it was structured very differently. It was basically walking through different time periods and then arguing in each section that pathogens were the reason for certain outcomes. So, for example, the author argues in this book that pathogens were the reason why the North won the war in the American Civil War. And I found that I just didn't always buy the arguments. I don't disagree that pathogens may have been an unexplored and unacknowledged, I guess, contributor to many historical events, but the author seems to say that it is the reason for why certain outcomes have been reached. And I think it did not manage to convince me, and I was pretty frustrated and disappointed reading this book. So I'm not the biggest Cold War, I guess, history buff. I don't gravitate towards, I guess, that time period and those events very often. So I was pretty surprised just how much I enjoyed The Spy and the Traitor by Ben McIntyre, which is, again, a piece of narrative nonfiction that follows the events around a certain Russian double agent. So he was a spy for Russia that then spied for the UK. And, you know, one of the reviews for this book says that, like, if you don't have enough time, don't start the final section of this book because you won't be able to put it down. And I 1000% agree with that. I just blazed through this book. I read it as an audiobook, and I found it just entirely gripping, totally well told, very well researched. Again, all the things that I care about when it comes to nonfiction. And I was surprised, again, just how much I ended up liking this book. For my most emotional read, which is my play on the question, what book made you cry, I have The Road to Jonestown, Jim Jones and the People's Temple by Jeff Gwynne, which is the book that we chose for Guyana for this Read Around the World project, but it's not a great pick if you want to learn more about that country. It is a great pick if you want to know more about the massacre at Jonestown and kind of the events that lead up to this. This is, I would say, mainly a biography of Jim Jones at the heart of it, and it's quite long, and it's really this slow descent into more and more paranoia and narcissism, and you know where it's going, right? It's very obvious from the beginning that you know it's going to end in the deaths of, you know, over 900 people. But it was just a really icky, really sobering read. Jim Jones was a piece of work, and I found that I really needed to read something light and fluffy after this, but I did think that it was very good, and it gave me more of a comprehensive history beyond just, you know, the Wikipedia page and those famous photos and the phrase "don't drink the Kool-Aid." For a book that made me happy, I'm again going to pick a book from this global reading project. I'm going to pick our Ivory Coast pick, which is Aya, Life in Yop City by Marguerite Abouet and Clement Oubrerie. I googled how to say their names before I started filming this video, and I've already kind of forgotten, but I hope I've done that okay. And this is, again, a choice for the Ivory Coast. And, you know, I need to make a video about this global reading project, but I will say that so many books are depressing. There's like grief, war, violence, like rape, more war, more violence, more grief. And so when we get a happy book for this reading project, I think I'm even more happy about it. I'm just thrilled to read it. And Aya is a fantastic option. It's a graphic novel. So first of all, it's really easy to read. It's in color. Again, I don't like graphic novels that don't have color. It's kind of a bit of a pet peeve. And it follows this friend group as they navigate like relationships and conflicts in their friendships and issues in their home life. And it's just really fun. It does continue. It goes beyond this first book. I think there's 3 books. I think it's even a cartoon, maybe, but I don't know if I'm remembering that incorrectly. But I just thought it was so much fun. It was a quick read. It was an entertaining read. And most importantly, it was a happy read. My favorite new character was incredibly easy to decide. It's a character from Lamb, The Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Pal by Christopher Moore. My favorite character is Biff, which is Jesus's best friend. This is a piece of blasphemy. I love me a little bit of blasphemy. It's a piece of historical fiction that is set up again as a new gospel written by Jesus's best friend growing up, and it is hilarious. It gives me major Life of Brian vibes from Monty Python. If you've seen that movie, this is the same kind of humor, it's the same kind of energy, it's the same kind of storyline. The only thing is Biff is a little bit more interesting, I think, than Brian in the movie. But if you're down for that, I think you'll really enjoy this. It does have a little bit of 90s humor. Like, I don't know if everything would be, I guess, politically correct today. So it might not be for everybody, the type of humor, but I laughed out loud a lot listening to this as an audiobook. I do recommend it as an audiobook. And again, it's just a really great light read in between, I guess, more serious books that I consumed this year. Okay, now into some books that I haven't read yet, so I can't give reviews on them, but a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. 2 of them. The first one is On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniels. I love The Summer That Melted Everything. I think that is such a brilliant book. And so I do really want to read McDaniels' follow-up from this year. I hate this cover, but I know it's going to be good. I also know it's going to be really emotional. And I'm just never prepared when I sit down. I'm like, oh, maybe I should read it. And I don't know. I don't have the emotional energy to read it, so I haven't gone to it yet. The other one that I really want to read is In the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klein. I have never read anything from this author. But it's supposed to be like cozy fantasy or cozy fiction. And so I'm hoping this one is warm and fuzzy. It's a sci-fi retelling of Pinocchio, which I am very down for that. And then for my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, I don't know if this is great timing with all of the world events with that Titan submersible right now, but I am really interested in reading The Underworld: Journeys to the Depths of the Ocean by Susan Casey, which is about the deep sea, the bottom of the deep sea. It covers, I think, the work done by oceanographers and geologists and marine biologists. And I've just always been intrigued by the bottom of the ocean. I'm actually reading a book by this author right now. I'm in the middle of it. It's called The Devil's Teeth. It's about the Farallon Islands, which are off the coast of San Francisco, and great white sharks. And I'm liking it, and so I'm hoping that I will continue to like that one, and I will like this one even more. And for my favorite, to me, new author, that also was, again, a very easy question for me to answer. It's Patrick Radden Keefe. I read Empire of Pain, and I read Say Nothing this year. Those are the first 2 books I had ever read of him. I hadn't read anything before this year. And then I'm currently like 75% of the way done through The Snakehead, and they're all fantastic. I'm really enjoying all of them. Again, it's wonderful narrative nonfiction. I just love how the layers of his storytelling just build and build and build. And so you'll have all these kind of random storylines that will come together. I have full faith that they'll all come together. It's just really, really interesting and, again, really well researched. I totally understand the Patrick Radden Keefe hype. My question to the audience is it worth reading Rogues and Chatter? Because those are the only 2 books. I think it's 5 books total. And those 2 I haven't read yet, and I've heard mixed things on them. So I don't know if I should continue and just read his entire backlist, or if I should stop with the 3 that I have now. For the most beautiful book cover, I have been really excellent this year, and I've only bought like 3 or 4 books. They're books that I had to buy because I was doing it for, again, this global reading project, and I just couldn't get them from any library I have a card with. And so they're not always that pretty. So I'm actually not going to choose any of those. And I'm just going to go with covers of books that came out this year. That's what I'm going to do. So I really loved the Pathogenesis cover. In particular, I think this is a US cover edition. It's got, I don't know, I just like a historical painting with like modern font. And then you can't really tell it from the photo, but there are these like raised texture where the teal like dots are, which is, I think, supposed to represent a spreading pathogen. Again, the cover's so good. I just really wish I had liked the book, but I'm really glad I didn't buy the book for the cover. I also really like Monstrio by Gerardo Cordova, which people have been loving. I think it's a piece of horror literary fiction. I haven't read it. I want to read it. It's a really arresting cover. And then I also really like The Last Animal by Ramona Osubel, which I also want to read. I don't know. I like the colors. I like mammoths. It's just something that I would gravitate towards. And then lastly, it might be the same question that I did, or the same answer that I did for this question last year, but a book I really need to read by the end of the year. And that is, it's embarrassing for me to say it on camera, but it is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Because I absolutely love the 1995 miniseries from BBC. I watch it every 6 months. It's like a 6-hour, well, they're like 45-minute episodes, but it's a 6-episode miniseries that, it's so nostalgic to me, and I absolutely love that movie. And yet I have never read the book. I know. So that's really on my radar. I really need to right that wrong and get to that one soon. And those are my answers. I think it pretty much encapsulates, a lot of the reading for this year. It hasn't been the best reading year, actually. Not in terms of quantity. I don't care as much about that in terms of just books that I like. I feel like I haven't had a lot of really great ones, and I also haven't had a lot of really shitty ones. So it's been a lot of like 3-star reads for me. But again, a lot of nonfiction, books from this Around the World reading project, and then a few pieces of kind of fun and lighthearted in between. So yeah, I'm hopeful for the second half of the year. There are a lot of books that I'm eyeing, that I've already put library holds on for, that I'm excited about. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it gave you a good taste of what I like. And I would love to hear more about your thoughts, whether you've read any of these or just books that have stood out to you. It's always fun, even if they're books that you don't think that I would like. I would just love to know anyway. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.